Good morning, everybody. This is Scott from American Everyman. Today is the 15th of May, 2018. Did not make a video yesterday. I was doing research and putting a few links to articles on my website, and the whole thing broke out with in Gaza as the beautiful people ate beautiful cake in Jerusalem, where they were opening his unfinished embassy as a PR move, as a stunt, on the 70th anniversary of Nakba, by the way. So I'm going to show you some stuff here in a second, but just want you to be aware. One of the reasons and the things that I have focused on primarily throughout the duration of my 11 years of doing this on this website, on my website, not the YouTube channel, but my website. One of my primary focuses has always been Palestine, what's happening in Palestine. Certainly throughout the entire Obama administration. And so yesterday kind of had an effect on me, and I didn't really post anything after that. I was watching the news like many people and trying to find as much information about what was really going on as I could. But it kind of affected me. That kind of thing always does. The numbers are in, and yesterday 60 people. This one says, this is BBC. I'm going to close this because I guarantee you it's screwing my frame rate, but if you want to go to it, there won't be a link down below, but there's the link right there. You can type it in yourself. They say 58 were buried today. It's actually 60. 60 protesters killed yesterday while everybody was celebrating. What a wonderful day for the Israelis, said Donald Trump. 2,400, 2,700 were wounded. Of course, Netanyahu claims it was acting in self-defense against the Islamist rulers of Hamas. And that is the PR spin that they apparently all chose to run with, and that was Hamas is to blame. And I'm going to show you a clip of Trump's spokesperson saying that in the White House to the press corps, that Hamas is to blame because Hamas was throwing these innocent people at the Israeli bullets in order to turn it into a PR stunt for them. That's literally what came out of the mouth of a White House spokesperson. And you see that same spin, that same Hasbro propaganda coming out of the mouths of people in the news and even on some alternative websites as justification for what happened. And it's offensive. And yesterday I was dead set sure that Donald Trump is going to be the worst president this country has ever seen, and I am probably accurate with that assessment. He's still only been in office for just over a year now. He's already given away billions to billionaires and corporations, and attacked Syria, and basically handed over control to his glorious generals, and basically doing anything, allowing the deep state to do whatever they want. Now that the MAGA crowd has turned off my video, we can continue. Some of the MAGA crowd probably is still here, waiting to see with bated breath what I'm going to say next. That's my position, was my position yesterday. But you know, like I said before, I have been doing this for a while. And so I figured, I remembered later in the evening, you know, well, I remembered about what happened during the Obama administration and the Clinton administration when she was Secretary of State. And it occurred to me, as bad as I feel about what happened yesterday, as embarrassed as I feel about what happened, about how the White House responded and how, you know, the press corps in the United States seems to be marching in lockstep with the Likudniks and the fucking Zionist influence and the Zionist faction in Israel. As embarrassed as I am about that, it occurred to me, and my memories kicked in, and I said, wait a minute. As bad as this is, it is still not quite on par with Operation Cast Lead, with Operation Protective Edge, with Operation Pillar of Defense. I mean, these things all took place during the Obama administration. And the same exact excuses were used time and time again. There was the same silence coming from the fake left. If you guys don't remember, when Elizabeth Warren was asked about what was happening with Operation Protective Edge, she turned and ran down the hallway to avoid having to answer the question. Literally turned and ran down the hallway. Bernie Sanders, of course, that fake progressive, that fake socialist, that puppet, that shill, that sheepdogger for Hillary Clinton, that piece of shit, when he was asked about it, he was yelling and screaming at a town hall meeting with his own voters, his own supporters, people who've donated to him, yelling and screaming that Israel has a right to self-defense. At that point in that particular conflict, Israel had already killed 500 children. So as much as I wanted yesterday to believe that this was some kind of aberration, that Trump and his administration and the collective voices of our complicit media, even our alternative media, and even the quote-unquote progressive leadership in this country, as much as I wanted to think that it was an aberration, that all of these things had turned against the Palestinian people at that particular time yesterday, and that somehow that wasn't par for the course, I remembered that it was. What is happening in Gaza is an extermination. And that's all you can say about it. There's nothing, there's no argument, there's no war, these aren't war crimes. These are crimes against humanity that have been taking place for a very long period of time, much longer than I've been writing my website and I've been studying this stuff. It is an extermination. It is the systematic removal of a population from a location so that Israel can claim it as their own. I hate to play into the stereotype and I won't, because it isn't about the leaders of Israel being Jewish or about extreme Jewish beliefs. It is simply about resources, what is off the coast of Gaza, the resources and the water in Golan Heights and the West Bank. It is about certain factions coveting what their neighbors possess. And that is all it's about. And it is sickening to watch. and it is sickening to listen to Israel's or the Likudniks' apologists in this country, be they in the mainstream media or be they in the White House or Congress, or be they in the DNC, or be they on progressive talk radio. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go over a bit of the history that we're talking about. We're going to start, obviously, with this. And I'm going to get rid of this because I guarantee you got maybe 2 frames throughout this whole first opening 5 minutes of this. I don't know what it's doing. It's probably horrible. But I'm going to hope that it's not that bad. But this is, they claim 58 people were killed. It was actually 60. 2,700 were shot, injured. All sorts of people. They claimed that Hamas threw them towards the fucking fence so that they would be hurt and killed, and then they could use that as some kind of propaganda, which is beyond offensively stupid. Anyone who repeats that is a moron. We're going to say that right off the bat. But we are going to take an honest look at the history of this, at least as much as I know, at least as long as I've been doing what I've been doing. I'm going to try to put it into a little perspective. I'm going to start with this, which is kind of a hopeful starting point. This was in 2014 after the last attack, real attack. There have been others, and there's been ongoing attacks by Israel on the people of Gaza. But this really is these 4 events now. Obviously, the march that's taking place now, and the scores of people who have been killed during this particular round of extermination practiced by the IDF. This one, Operation Cast Lead, which was kicked off in December 27th, 2009. You have Pillar of Defense, which was much smaller in scale, but that was 2012, right after the election, or during the election, they kicked it off. And then, of course, you have Protective Edge. Operation Cast Lead and Protective Edge, the 2 highest fatality numbers, off the charts in terms of that. But in 2014, after Protective Edge, I posted this just to remind people that the Palestinians are a resilient people, and they are noble. And even though they live in absolute squalor, and they live basically in a Warsaw ghetto-like situation that no one hardly ever tries to compare it to, they still have hope, and they still find moments of joy, and they still dance, and they still celebrate, and they still live. And that's something I guarantee you. There's a passion, and there's a courage, in people who can do that, much more so than anything that I have seen or witnessed myself. Certainly I wouldn't possess that kind of fortitude, and I doubt very many would, but they are born to it, and they are forged by it. They are far better people than Benjamin Netanyahu, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, George W. Bush, Donald Trump, Jake Tapper. They are far, far better people. And they will survive, and they will continue, and they will live, and they will continue to wait until a time when humanity evolves to the point where we stop allowing people, these Zionists, these Likudniks and their apologists, to treat them in this way. Eventually, the world will step forward and say, that's enough. And they are holding on until that moment, until that time. And until then, they are still surviving, they are still thriving, and they are still finding moments of joy. And that, to me, is probably a far better evaluation of what is happening and has been happening over there than I'm going to show you now. But we're going to get a bit into the history of it. Let's remember that Donald Trump is nothing more now than a pawn. He is their asset. He is their tool. Whatever it was that happened over the last year, at first the deep state was struggling with him, and he got rid of the 7th floor group in the State Department, and he was trying to pull back resources and fired 840 overseas agents or diplomats, quote unquote, from the State Department, people who ran regime change operations and backed dictators in various countries. But which is why they hated him so, which is why they created the whole Russia hacking, Russia collusion, Russian influence stories and campaigns. That, and to silence the kinds of people like myself and others who shared real information with folks in the run-up to the 2016 election and contributed to the accidental president taking office. But all that said, Donald Trump is now, he is now their puppet, whatever it was that got to him. I've often said, since his candidacy in 2015 and 2016, I've often said that everyone thinks that, you know, at least at the time, they might think differently now, but oh, what we need to do is get a billionaire, because then a billionaire who has his own mega business, he won't be beholden to the oligarchs and the powers that be and the masters of the universe. And I've always said that was ridiculous, because ultimately that is going to be his downfall, or her downfall, depending on which billionaire you're talking about. You know, they can bring you into a room and sit you down in front of the stock market ticker, and they can make a phone call and flash crash your stocks for 5-10 minutes to the point where you know you're going to be penniless if they don't make a change. Not only will you be penniless, but you'll be in debt, and your kids will be in debt for the rest of their lives. They'll be lucky to get a job at Walmart. It's very easy to do. With high-frequency trading and the computer systems that they run them with, very easy to do. So it's a weakness, it's a vulnerability, and it's possible that's what they used against him, because I seriously doubt threatening his life or threatening his kids' lives would matter to him. The only thing that matters to him is his legacy, his name on buildings. If they threaten to take that away and strip it away from him, yeah, that might work. Speaking of his name on buildings, now this is my Twitter feed, and I have been covering this quite a bit. This idiot here, I don't know who he is, Tim Kennedy, MMA, laid on a board and had his friend spray him in the face with a hose for 9 seconds, and he says, that's not torture. People will do anything to try to justify their belief in a God. And I don't care if the God is Jehovah. I don't care if the God is Donald Trump or neoliberal economic ideology. They'll do almost anything to justify it. This is the Labor Party standing with the people in standing with the Likudniks, blaming Hamas for Israel killing 60 protesters. That's the Labor Party, just so you know. All of you Jeremy Corbyn supporters out there. Yeah, you'll notice that I don't really pick sides. That's not what I've ever done. I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I didn't vote for him once. I knew exactly what he was before he was fucking. He was inaugurated the first time. He wasn't a surprise at all. There's a lot of good stuff here. I wanted to find the one where he is, which of course Twitter probably got rid of. Oh yeah, this is the sign we're talking about. This is the putting his name on this. Somebody put that up. Kirk Nemo put that up, I guess. You can read down there Donald Trump's name on the embassy. Lots of stuff on this feed. I'm trying to find a very specific video, which I might not find. People are doing all kinds of shit. Look at that. Man, that's rough. Man, that's literally what they were doing while the IDF was using snipers to kill protesters. I wonder if they had the beautiful cake back in the back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this. Oh, I see that? I did.
Tragic deaths, that their rather cynical exploitation of the situation, it is what we believe that you know, Hamas is responsible for these tragic deaths. That their rather cynical exploitation of the situation, it is what's leading to these deaths, and we want them to stop.
So there's no burden on Israel to do something to sort of rein it in?
No, we think that we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Hamas is the one that, frankly, bear responsibility for the dire situation right now.
I just wanted to share that with you, so you didn't think I was lying. This is an interesting, this is Stat Planet, and this is an interesting thing that they are currently working on. I think World Beyond War, David Swanson, I've had my issues with him in the past, especially around 2008 when he was all on board with the Obama thing. But even before that, really, talking about 9/11, he didn't want to hear anything about it. But these are countries that are currently at war, and I think to have to be added to this present war's list, you have to have had 1,000 killed civilians, whatever. As you can see, this is very interesting. It ties back to Hillary Clinton and Benghazi. You know, you have Libya, and in 2011 we had to regime change Libya, but then right after that, that wasn't enough because there was a lot of turmoil in those countries that we see that are at war all around Libya. Look at that. Look at that. If you go back to 2011, all these countries weren't at war. And what you have taking place in those countries are special operations forces. Special operations forces either putting down, helping to put down real revolutions or fomenting revolutions in order to get rid of an unfriendly government. But prior to Benghazi, it would have been frowned upon if the first black U.S. president was trying to involve himself and militarize and basically recolonize a good part of Africa. So Benghazi took place, and of course part of what happened with Benghazi as far as the aftermath was concerned was because that they claimed that these terrorists came from other nations. They were going to have to try to stabilize the region, and that basically opened the door for special forces and for us to send in troops or proxy warriors or whatever the case may be. But as we see now, and this is what I wrote about back then, as we see now all around Libya, we see that taking place. Of course, this is Syria way up here. This is Iraq. This is Afghanistan. I'm surprised Pakistan's not included in this, but maybe they haven't had 1,000 deaths this year or not. Anyway, point being, Barack Obama expanded 2 wars into 7. And now we have obvious, and of course we're not responsible for every single one of these. Well, I take that back. The drug war, yeah. In Mexico, yeah. We are very much responsible for it in terms of financing and arming certain factions so that they can better kill other factions and consolidate it like we did with our banking system in 2008, consolidate it all up to one controllable faction who works for us. So yeah, we are all responsible for that. But I mean, typically in terms of, you know, an announced war, no, we're not at that point yet with Mexico. Barack Obama turned two conflicts, 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, into 7. I bet you if we click on the drone strikes, it would be fascinating to see. But I can't do that now. I haven't got time. So we have that. We have that. Let's talk about what I intended to talk about to start with. This is B'Tselem, which is an Israeli organization. I want to say this off the bat, right off the bat as well. Donald Trump, Monday, tweeted what a wonderful thing, or what a wonderful day for Israelis, because the U.S. had put their embassy in Jerusalem, thus declaring that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Jerusalem is a universal city and has been declared a universal city. East Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. These are by international law. Specifically, the international law established after the Six-Day War and according to the June 1967 Accords, which set up the Green Lines, set up the borders, official internationally recognized borders between Israel and Palestine, which of course were immediately ignored by Israel, and they have been constantly encroaching upon them ever since. But Jerusalem is not the capital of Israel. Tel Aviv is. Jerusalem is an international city. It is a global city because of its history, because of what it represents. Of course, the Likudniks and the Zionists don't see it that way. And apparently neither does Donald Trump. But anyway, when he said it was a great day for Israelis, that is the worst kind of dismissal. It almost borders on racist, and it's not simply racist toward Palestinians, but it's racist toward every other person who lives in Israel who isn't a Zionist. And there are millions of them. There are Jews who aren't Zionists. There are in Israel. Believe it or not, it's true. There are Arabs that live there. There are atheists that live there. There are Christians that live there who are not Zionists, who do not want the capital to be Jerusalem. That is beyond arrogance. Yes, other presidents said that they should do it. Yes, other presidents promised to do it, but never did. They were paying lip service to the Zionists. But Donald Trump, even before the damn thing was finished and ready and the renovations were made sure they slapped that fucking plaque on the wall with his fucking name on it. And he sent his wife over there for some big fucking press thing that could take place on the anniversary, the 70th anniversary of Nakba. And then he made up justifications for Israel killing 60 people, wounding 2,700 others at a protest, unarmed Palestinians. So yes, it was very offensive, and it is shameful how he acquiesces to how he is an apologist for a brutal leader of another nation, a liar, in many ways a psychopath, goes before the UN with a fucking Acme bomb painting, picture of an Acme bomb. He is there are videos of him saying things about people who are not Jewish. He is certainly racist. And I'm talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. And the fact that the President of the United States is so committed to serving as his apologist. It is offensive, and it is shameful. It is. It is shameful, because that is what Trump and the Trump administration is doing. And the rest of the world sees it that way, which again reflects very poorly on the United States of America. Now, let's put it into perspective, which is what this whole video is about. He's not the first. He's certainly gone farther than most, and probably will continue, and that's what frightens me. Probably will continue. Listen, if you give a bully an inch, they will take a mile. And we know that. Especially a little cowardly bully like Benjamin Netanyahu, who thinks that he is on some kind of holy crusade. He is a fanatic and quite possibly psychotic. And we'll go through some of that here. But look, as bad as that is, yes, other presidents have tolerated beyond what they should have tolerated. Some have forced Israel to make concessions. Look back at George W. Bush. They had to pull settlers screaming out of Gaza. 2005, I believe. They literally had to grab them and drag them out of Gaza. And that was because of pressure from the Bush administration. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton herself talked about the fact that Barack Obama, in his first overseas trip to the Middle East, visited Egypt and then skipped right over Tel Aviv. Didn't even go to Israel to send them a message. And of course, the Israelis hated him for it. I can't understand how people would look at the Obama administration and what they did and what they turned a blind eye to. And we're going to go over that here in 1 second. But I can't believe they would do that and look and see how he turned a blind eye to this shit and not think that he was the greatest friend Israel ever had, to be honest with you. I mean, no, he didn't move the embassy to Jerusalem and slap his own name up on a plaque. But he turned a blind eye to horrific acts committed by the IDF towards unarmed Palestinian civilians. Horrific acts. And a steady diet of horrific acts. Remember, I'm going to talk about these three major offenses that took place during the Obama administration. But those aren't the only attacks Israel has leveled against the Palestinian people and the people in Gaza. And for God's sake, the West Bank, Israel runs like an apartheid state with Bantustans and slave labor, basically, using Palestinians as slave labor, basically. I mean, it's remarkable what we allow our quote-unquote friends in the region to get away with. But let's be more specific. Let's talk about the first one was December 27th. Now, December 27th, 2009. No, 2009? 2020, no, 2008. I've got the wrong date written down. That's interesting because what they did was they attacked Palestine, Gaza, in this effort at extermination, knowing full well that the George W. Bush administration was leaving office and the Obama administration was taking office. And what they did was they set it to take place right up until Obama was inaugurated. They started with December 27th. It ran for about, well, how long does it say? Right, 2 days before the inauguration. And the reason they did that was because the outgoing president could then say, well, I'm not going to do anything that will set a precedent for the incoming president out of respect for him. And the incoming president could say, I'm not going to make any statements on this because I'm not going to presume to tell the president what to do before I take office. Very carefully planned out, providing cover for both of them, but also allowing them to just kind of go hands off on it while the IDF went crazy and attacked Palestinian people in Gaza. These are the numbers. Again, this is B'Tselem. It's an Israeli institution. As you can see, there's Hebrew written up on the top there. But it is still by far and away the most, and I'll post a link to it down below, by far and away the most accurate and the most well-established keeper of the record, so to speak, of these things. Now let's take a look real quick at what happened with the occupied territories and Israel. This was the conflict between December 2008 and January 2009. Palestinians killed by Israeli security forces. Total 1,398 in the occupied territories. 1,398. 345 of them were children during that 1 month period, less than a month. During this war against the Palestinians, a fight to prevent the Palestinians from attacking Israel, which is how they tried to portray it. Total of 4 Israelis were killed. Total 4 Israelis killed. 4 compared to 1,400. It was a slaughter. It was an extermination. That's Operation Castlet. Now here's the thing too. I have, this is, well, I'm going to use this to show you fatalities during Operation Castlet. Let's go to Protective Edge. Protective Edge is the other big one. Pillar of Defense was in 2012, right then when the election was taking place is when it kicked off. They staged a little fucking thing and then killed a couple of Hamas soldiers who were inside Gaza. And then when Hamas retaliated, they threw their hands up and said, oh my God, we're under attack. And they started attacking again. And there weren't that many killed during Operation. That was Pillar of Defense in 2012, November. But it was still interesting in terms of seeing how Israel does their little things. But this is Protective Edge. Now that's 1,400 in Pillar of Defense, 2009, 2000. Oh no. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I wonder if they have this. These are the numbers that have been killed in total since Operation Castlet. It's hard to get a handle on that. You will find if you go to my website, I have a heading for Operation Castlet, Pillar of Defense, Protective Edge, obviously the Gaza Flotilla, all of these things. and I have covered this for years, and I have been writing about this for years, and it's a good source of information if you want to go back and just kind of go through it. Which is one of the things that I was doing this morning while in preparation for this, trying to get together some notes about what is taking place, and just unfortunately having to go through and kind of relive all this shit. And it is a nasty part of what I do here, because it wears on you, you know. Good article here talking about what happened with Operation Cast Lead, Pillar of Defense and Protective Edge. Protective Edge. 1,803 Palestinians were killed by my last count. Now, I'm going to scroll down here and show you some of this in terms of some of the coverage that I did. 402 of them were children. I think that number ended up being closer to 500, which is the one that people were yelling at, talking to Bernie Sanders, and he started yelling back at them. They were saying, what about the 500 kids who were killed? And he was screaming, they have a right to self-defense. 500 children killed in a 3-week period of time. 77% of all the fatalities of those 1,800 were civilians. 77%. And we can go on and on. That was in July, started in July of 2014. We can go on, and there's tons of these things to talk about. One of these, which one did I do? Oh, here's an interesting thing. This was 2014. This was John Bolton. Again, here's that John Bolton name. And he was really pushing for people to, you know, come out and say, do you think Israel is fully justified in exercising its right of self-defense against the Hamas terrorists? We see the same propaganda and the same. It's just defense. They're defending themselves. Killed almost 500 children. So you had, in that particular case, Bernie Sanders basically on the same side as John Bolton. And of course, we know where John Bolton works today, don't we? Here is an interesting one that I found, again, 2014. In his latest assault on Gaza, Israel had by Thursday already killed 69 Palestinians. This was July 12th. This is the beginning of it. Ends up being 1,800. 69 Palestinians, including 22 children, 13 women, plus 469 wounded, including 166 children and 85 women, and 70 houses destroyed. In this video from Thursday on CNN, Jake Tapper interviews Diana Boutou, a former advisor to the PLO. After failing to persuade her of Israel's complete innocence, he tells her that Hamas is instructing women and children to remain in their homes to die as Israel bombs them. Again, blame the victims. This is a constant theme. This is a recurring meme, if you will, where the only thing they have left to do. It is so obvious. It is so one-sided. It is so vicious. I guarantee you, if fucking Assad was doing this, if Assad killed 60 goddamn people with sniper fire and wounded 2,700, we would be rolling into fucking Syria today. Not a question. I mean, for God's sake, the white helmets paid for by Britain and the United States, the white helmets staged some stupid little fucking thing where they ran into a hospital and sprayed people with water, screaming chemical weapons. There were no chemical weapons, and we launched fucking missiles. Could you imagine if Assad had his troops sitting there, snipers, and they actually killed 60 unarmed fucking people on video and wounded 2,700? Could you imagine what the fuck we would be doing? Blame the victim. Blame the victims. Now, there's a video I wanted to show you. There was a guy, it's really good, I wanted to show this, who was on one of these morning talk show things. And he was trying to, he couldn't believe the coverage or lack of coverage. It just, he was incensed by it. And you very rarely see a bit of humanity come squeaking out, honest humanity come squeaking out of these talking heads. It's very rare. And I had hoped that I had retweeted it, because I tweeted a bunch on Gaza. Really? Oh, this is home. This is not my, hang on a second. This is not my Twitter feed. Let me go to my Twitter feed. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, this is it. I knew it wasn't up. Hang on, I'll restart it.
All of those people are dead.
Not necessarily going to help the midterms.
All that's important, and all of those babies are dead. All of those people are dead. They're dead. And we're talking about racehorses. I mean, the politics. I mean, there are a lot of folks who are dead today. For what? I'm sorry. This is me being a moralist, I suppose.
No, I understand. And the White House today, their response to that was it is Hamas's fault, and they're using them as tools for propaganda.
That's like saying the children in the Children's March of Birmingham, it was their fault that Bull Connor attacked them.
That's why I wanted to save that for last. You notice how they, the people sitting there across the table didn't know how to respond. It is not that everyone who works in these careers for these institutions are equally devoid of a moral center. It is not that they are incapable of feeling, and it is not that they are all insipid enough to purchase, to buy into the propaganda that came from the White House, which she said, of course, she had to spout that out there. It's Hamas's fault. It is not that at all. You could see the reaction on the woman sitting next to him. You could see the reaction on her face. She was uncomfortable because she knows it is career killing for her to say the wrong thing, and yet she is a woman and probably as at least maybe even more so affected by it as he was. But of course, her sensibilities prevented her from, at least in that video, that clip, she may have flipped out afterwards and started screaming, you know, we got to stop these people killing these unarmed protesters. It's wrong. But it's good to see a little bit of humanity peek its head out of the shadows every now and then. Over the years, I have, people ask me why I do what I do, why I look at these horrible things all across the world, and have to take the time to evaluate them and to digest them and to internalize them and try to share them with people. And I guess the only real answer to that is because I know that this kind of horror has been leveled upon decent people throughout history. I mean, I don't think that there's ever been a time when someone hasn't been treated like the Palestinians, like the Africans, like Jewish people in the 30s, or gypsies in the 30s, or gays in the 30s, or liberals in the 30s, or I don't think, or Indonesians, or people from East Timor. You know, I don't think there has ever been a period in history when people of questionable moral character haven't been oppressing, killing, exterminating somebody. Yet, as long as our history is and is as full of these kinds of things, the Inquisition, I mean, you can go as far back as you want. Romans. As long as our history is and is as full of it as of these kinds of events as it is, the vast majority of humanity right now are decent people, decent nations behaving in decent, civilized ways. It would be the joy of my life to be able to just simply focus on the best things that are happening throughout the world. The upbeat things, the inspiring moments of man being decent to man. But you have to focus on these in order to remind people that it's happening. Otherwise, you turn a blind eye to it, and people like this young man, he's a young man now, this is 2014, I believe. People like this young man and that woman kneeling in the rubble behind him, they will go away quietly and nobody will take notice, and we can't allow that. But I am inspired by something that was said by somebody much wiser than me eons ago, and I don't know exactly who it is, and I don't know the exact quote from it, but I believe it was Gandhi. He said something to the line of, to the effect that, you know, they will always lose. The people who do these kinds of things throughout history have always lost. And they will always lose, and they will always lose because human nature and the human condition is what it is. They have to lie about things like what happened in Gaza yesterday. They have to. And that ultimately proves the futility of their efforts. They have to lie about them, because they know deep down inside every human being is decent and moral, with some exceptions. But the vast majority of us are decent and moral, and if they told the truth, they would be forced to stop immediately. Look at that kid. Is he defeated by this? No. And the Palestinians will not be defeated by what happened yesterday. To put yesterday into perspective, it was a horrible massacre. It was a continuation of the extermination project. And it was embarrassing to see our president and his spokespeople respond the way they did. But to put it into perspective, go back and look at the disinformation, the propaganda, the Hasbro lies and spin that came out of the mouths of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden for the last 8 years. It's just a continuation of the same. And unfortunately, that's what we got. Once back in 2008, I told people you're not going to get the change you were promised. Once in 2016, I tried to tell people once again who were saying they were going to vote for Trump as opposed to Hillary. I said that's fine, but don't expect change. Continuity and stability are the only things that matter to them in terms of the politics here in the United States of America, the shining city on the hill. Yep, yesterday had an effect on me. Sorry if this is such a downer, this video, but I will try to continue to bring you all the good news from the world as best as I can. Today is the 15th. It is 8 o'clock in the morning now. I thank you very much for taking the time. If you're still here watching this, I thank you very much for listening to it and watching the whole thing. There's a little perspective for you. Is Donald Trump going to be the worst president this country's ever seen? Probably, I think. It's going to be kind of hard to beat 9/11 and George W. Bush. But, hey, he's got 3 more years.